Hey, how's it going? My name is Andy Monroe, the co-founder of Bullish Events. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about mastering the art of live event framing. And I'm super excited for this video because of how important framing is when it comes to live events. And the ideas, frameworks, strategies in this video have contributed to us generating over $10 million in direct revenue from live events, as well as maintaining an overall attendee satisfaction score of 4.7 out of 5 stars across, I think at this point, like 6,400 attendees, maybe a little bit more. But as you can tell, the idea of framing and the way that we have been able to use framing for our events is incredibly important, and I'm confident that it's going to help you get some really good results with your live events. So with all that being said, let's just jump right into it. Now, why is framing important? Well, in my opinion, framing is important for two reasons. Number one, the actual success of your event. Usually it's financial success, but if you're not, using an event for achieving financial objectives, just the overall success of your event. And then number two is the actual attendee experience. So does your attendee have a good time at your event? Framing is important for those two reasons. And before we dive any further, framing has always been something interesting. I feel like myself personally and my other business partners, when we've worked on events, we've never really identified what framing is. We just kind of intuitively framed our events. It was never rigid or binary, but I think as I was scripting out this video, I wanted to define the terms to, one, help myself just gain a concrete understanding of like what I think framing is, as well as to help you, for any of you that are watching this video that aren't really familiar with framing, what framing is. I think it could be very helpful to define our terms. So the way that I define framing, in simple terms, the simplest terms I could come up with is the way that you control the meaning of an experience. That's what framing is. You could also look at it as like the perspective of the person being framed. It's the way that person kind of internalizes and views an experience, and you actually do have control over that. That's one of the best parts about events, is you actually get to control the frame, the way that somebody perceives an experience and internalizes an experience. So again, one more time, in simple terms, framing is the way you control the meaning of experience. That's the way that I've defined framing. And what separates a transformational experience from a boring snooze fest? This is also this is not a binary question. There's obviously some experience design that goes into that, but a large part of it is framing. When somebody is sitting inside of an experience, they're maybe viewing a presentation or interacting with other attendees, or they're in a breakout room, whatever it is, the way that they are framed before taking on that experience will significantly impact the way they perceive and internalize that experience. So that's very important to understand. It's important to always be controlling and reinforcing the frame at your events before, during, and after. You don't ever want to leave the frame up for interpretation, and you don't want to allow the attendees to control the frames for themselves. That's dangerous. It could work out for you. Maybe you have a really good set of attendees and they just, properly frame themselves before the event. And every time you take them through an experience at your event, they're like, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to think about how this connects to the overall transformation and story that's being told. Usually that's not the case. Usually you have to be the one that frames the attendees at your event. So it's important for you just to anchor yourself as the authority and to be the one that's controlling the frame through the entire experience. That's incredibly important. Starting at the very moment someone interacts with the stimuli that is promoting your event. So that's one thing I want to point out is framing doesn't just start the second someone walks in the door at your event or the second that you get up on stage at your event. The framing of your event, the way that people are perceiving your event as an experience, begins the second they interact with a stimuli, or it could be an ad, it could be a message from you, it could be an email, it could be anything, a Slack message, whatever. However you are communicating your event to other people, the way that it's perceived and the way that people are internalizing that experience begins the moment they interact with your event for the first time. So it's important to be intentional about the framing from everywhere, from the way that you're marketing and promoting your event, the way that you are communicating with your attendees before the event, at the event itself, and even after. And we're going to dive into all of that in this video. So before you can do any of this, before you can actually frame the event for other people, it's important to get clear on how you are framing the event for yourself. I'm sure that makes sense. I'm sure you can see how it could be difficult to frame the event for others if you don't know how the event is framed for yourself, your business, your overall objectives. It's important to get very clear on that before you can properly frame other people. And this looks like, determining what the overall event objective objective is. So, like, why are you hosting this event? What's its purpose? Like, what objective does it serve for your business, your life, your movement, the transformation that you're trying to create in your industry, in your market? Whatever it is, it's very important to get clear on the overall objective of the event and the purpose it serves. Who are you serving and who is the avatar? So who is actually going to be in the room? This will help you speak directly to them in your marketing material. It's hard to market an event if you don't know who you want in the room. The more specific, the better. What are their problems, pain points, desires? It's very important to get clear on that. Are you selling something? If so, what? What beliefs do you want to shift in the audience? What transformation do you want the audience to experience? What transformation does your offer provide for your clients if you are selling something? So these are just some very important questions to ask yourself to frame the event for yourself. And then once you frame the event for yourself, you can much more easily. Yeah, I think that's a word. You can frame the event for others in a way easier way. So it's just important to get clear on that. Now, let's start with before the event. So this is framing your event before the event. So before people actually show up to your event. One important aspect of framing an event is setting expectations. And I know this sounds like very simple, but setting expectations is very important. And not just setting the expectations, but actually meeting or exceeding those expectations. So what will the attendee expect at your event? It's important to meet or exceed expectations, but never miss expectations. And I actually have a story on this. So I'm going to be using Fun Launch Live as an example for most of this video. For those of you that if it's like your first time watching this channel, or you aren't aware of what Fun Launch Live is, this is an event that I helped design and organize. It was for emerging fund managers. It was an acquisition event, so we were selling a high ticket offer at this event. We had at the first event we had over 1,000 attendees, and we had like around 1,500 to 1,700 attendees. And then we had near 2,000 attendees at the last one, and it was a very, very high revenue generating event. It was very successful. And I'm going to be using that as an example for a lot of these framing techniques. Now, the brunch story of Fun Launch Live 2024. This is one of my biggest mistakes, you could say, as an event designer. There was a brunch that was taking place at Fun Launch Live. I believe it was on the third day. And this is actually like a micro event within the event. So I know this is not like the framing of Fun Launch Live. This is the framing of the VIP brunch that was taking place inside of Fun Launch Live. And essentially, we, as most events do, we had a budget that we couldn't exceed for this event, and we had a little bit of food and beverage budget left over, and I wanted to organize a nice little experience for the VIP members the morning of the third day at Fun Launch Live 2024. And it was honestly going to be a great experience. Now, it should have been a great experience had I properly framed the experience and set the right expectations. I called it a brunch. What it was not a brunch. Maybe for me it was a brunch, but the food that was there was like yogurt bowls, granola, kind of like parfait and acai vibes for this brunch. But what I didn't recognize, or I guess I knew this, but I didn't realize the weight that it carried. But most people view a brunch as like, pancakes, bacon, eggs, hash browns, like very hearty feeling food, not yogurt, parfaits, acai. That's what I would probably prefer to have for brunch, but most people would not, pick that for brunch. They'd rather have, a more heartier traditional brunch. And it was communicated as brunch, and when people showed up, they were thoroughly disappointed. They're like, wait, this is it? Like, I'm gonna get like a little parfait, like a little yogurt bowl? Like, where's my pancakes? Where's my French toast? Where's my bacon and eggs? People were not upset, and I realized I completely mismanaged the expectations of the attendees. I said that we were going to have this VIP brunch, and they came in expecting a traditional brunch, and I gave them a very, granola healthy brunch. And people were pretty upset, and that really impacted myself, and I was very disappointed in the way that I handled that situation. But it also taught me a very valuable lesson of like setting expectations, and that it's luckily that was just a little brunch, and it was after the pitch as well, so it wasn't like detrimental to the entire return on investment of the event. But had I mismanage the expectations of the entire event, or even just like let's isolate that VIP brunch as just like one event. Let's say the VIP brunch was at the beginning of the event, then we did some sort of pitch later on at that event. It probably would have completely flopped because people were just very upset with the experience and their expectations weren't met, and the trust wasn't established there between me and the attendees. So if we were to get up on stage and pitch them right after, I bet our conversions would have been horrible, just because the relationship and the trust was damaged between us and the attendees, because because the expectations were not properly managed. So if you're hosting events, just please always properly set. It's okay to exceed expectations, but do not mismanage expectations. Do not underdeliver on expectations, because speaking from direct experience, it's very painful and it can really hurt the experience that your attendees have at your event, as well as your results, the return on investment, the financial success of your event. So stuff to be asking yourself when you are setting expectations for your event is the attendee coming to network, to learn, to work on their business, to experience transformation, or just to hang out and vibe with other people, maybe all the above. Whatever it is, just be clear in your pre-event material about what the attendee can expect or experience at the event, because the last thing you want to do is to set the wrong expectations. That could significantly harm the results that you see at your event, as well as the experience your attendees have. And this isn't specifically a video on event marketing, but one of the best ways to market an event is to sell the transformation they are going to experience at your event. And this is also framing. When somebody is experiencing your event marketing material, if you are communicating the transformation they're going to experience at your event, they're going to come into the event with that in mind. They're going to, okay, I'm going to buy this event for transformation because I want to experience, whatever transformation they are marketing towards me. And then when I go and I attend the event, I'm going to be ready to experience that transformation. You can see how the framing is very important when it comes to event marketing as well. And an example of this is, going back to Fund Launch Live, instead of come to this event and learn about funds and connect with other emerging fund managers, that's what the event is, but it's not very sexy and it doesn't really convey a transformation. We use language like, come learn how to start, launch, and scale an investment fund without an Ivy League degree or wasting years on Wall Street. Become a fund manager that investors chase. That is a transformation. That's much more captivating, and it really just conveys a transformation that the attendees are going to experience. And this is why we were able to sell, thousands of tickets to these events, because we really nailed our messaging for this event. So you can see the difference between, these two statements. Can you see how the frame is completely different in those two statements? If we continue to reinforce that message, the attendee will be showing up to the event in the state that is ready for that transformation, and this will enhance their experience and yield more results for you. Now, key point, be intentional about the frame that you want your attendees to enter into the event with, both when marketing your event to potential buyers and current ticket holders. So you just really want to make sure that you have your attendees enter into the event with the right frame. And this is in all your event marketing. This is in all of your pre-event communication. When you're talking back and forth with your attendees before the event, just make sure you are always reinforcing that transformation and the frame that you want them to enter into the event with. And a little bonus here. If you are selling something at your event, you can even be transparent about that and add it into the frame. Some people value that transparency. So it's important to know your avatar and what would resonate well with them. But typically, if you're working with entrepreneurial type, if you're working with people that are familiar with typical, marketing tactics, people really just value transparency. So if that's your avatar, you could try using some of these you could say tactics, but tactics even sounds salesy. These strategies, you could say. So one way to frame this is at this event, you are going to have to make a decision. That's a good way to frame the buying decision they're going to have to make. Or, yes, I will be offering a way for you to keep working with me after this event, but that will only be for those that are ready and qualified, or for those that it makes sense for. It's not going to be some high stakes pitch, just a simple invitation to continue to work with us after, if it makes sense. Something along those lines. I kind of just freestyled that, but you get the point of weaving the idea that you're going to be selling something into the frame so that people come and they're ready to be pitched. It's people get sold a lot these days, and it's pretty frustrating when you come to an event, and I'm sure we've all been to an event where it was framed as this amazing transformational experience, but it was just a pitch fest the entire time. If you just kind of break the ice and tell people that you will be pitching them at the event at some point, it really kind of reduces that friction. They have it's already it's pre-coded into their DNA to be ready for a pitch at your event. So just a little bonus tip there if you want to try that out for your events. Now let's move on to actual during the event, when the event is happening. So Number one, I actually added this in last moment because I forgot to add it in. But it's always important to frame yourself as the authority and as the host of the event. So you don't want it to be up for interpretation, like who's the authority in the room at your event. If it's your event, if you are hosting the event, you are the authority in the room. If you are, it's okay to have other speakers come and join you. It's okay to have other people up on stage and providing value, but you always want it to be framed that you are the authority and you are the host of the event, especially if you're going to be making the offer at the event. So if you aren't good at this, or you're not confident in yourself to frame yourself as the authority and the host of the event, I would highly recommend working with an event MC. And when we work with clients, we actually have a few event MCs in our network that we plug into their events. But if you don't end up working with us on your events, I would highly recommend, if you don't trust yourself to position yourself as the authority and the host at your own event, consider working with an MC. It'll save you a lot of headaches, and it'll kind of like relieve you of the pressure of controlling the frame in that regard. So just a little tidbit there. Now, the simplest way to manage the frame at your event is to identify the transformation the attendees are going to experience and continuously explain how each presentation, activity, breakout, etc., contributes to that transformation. That's the simplest way I could communicate that as possible. So if you are hosting an event and there is a transformation that's taking place, before every presentation, before every activity at the event, explain how what they are about to do ties into that overall transformation. That if you do that, that is properly framing your event during the event. That's as simple as I could put it. And I actually put together a little process for you for framing sessions at your event. So step number one is you want to state the false belief or pain point that exists around the topic or the presentation. You want to empathize with that pain point and that false belief. You don't want to just be like, hey, like, you guys are experiencing this, you're stupid, you're wrong, and then just like dive into the training. You want to empathize with it. You want to relate to it because it's valid. The false beliefs that people have in your audience are completely valid. You don't want to buy into them, but you want to recognize that they are valid, that they are experiencing those pain points and those false beliefs. You want to reframe a new belief or a new identity, a belief or identity shift, and you want to connect the event transformation, event promise into what they're about to do or what they're about to learn. That's a simple 4-step process. I'm actually going to show you an example of a session that we have done. So the example session is a session on pitching LPs or limited partners. This is some lingo in the fund world. So if you are not if you're not in the fund world, or if you're not familiar with limited partnerships or limited partners, just bear with me. Essentially, they're just investors. So title of this presentation could be Commanding the Room, How to Master the Art of Pitching LPs. So that's kind of like a identity shifting title, a transformation focused title. Now, number one, state the false belief or pain point. So this would be in the context of like introducing the session or the presentation. So you could say something along the lines of, I'm sure most of you have had the experience of completely bombing a pitch. Maybe you were nervous, intimidated, or underprepared. Don't worry, I've done this thousands of times. It's part of the process of becoming a fund manager. So that is stating the false belief and pain point. I've actually already empathized with the point as well. So you can see right here, just see above, where I say, like, don't worry, I have done this dozens of times. It's part of the process. It really it reduces the guilt and like the you could say the, I don't know what the word, like maybe the friction that comes along with the pain. I guess it just normalizes it. It makes them feel like they're not wrong, and they're just like on the journey of transformation. They're just along for the ride, and they're doing what everyone else has already done before them. So it just really like normalizes the problem that they're going through. And then number 3, reframe new belief or new identity. So for me, I always thought that pitching was a skill that you were born with, that I was unlucky and just never got the pitching gene. That was until I discovered this framework that I'm about to show you. This framework transformed me from a scared, nervous, passive salesman into a confident, persuasive, and influential closer. I'm confident that this will have the same effect on you. So you can see you're shifting the identity there. You're shifting from, scared, nervous, passive salesman all the way to a confident, persuasive, and influential closer. And the reason this works so well, we didn't use this exact presentation title, but we definitely used a lot of this language. It's because a lot of the people in the room were like, they were new emerging fund managers that were probably having a hard time raising capital. In fact, we knew they were having a hard time raising capital because when we collected data on surveys and on intake forms before the event, a lot of people said they were struggling with raising capital. However, this would be completely different if we were talking to seasoned fund managers that have already raised, billions of dollars or, tens of billions of dollars. If those people were in the room, we would not be using this language. But because everyone was a beginner and they were struggling with this, it was okay to kind of, identify the pain point and shift their identity to be more, confident, persuasive, and influential instead of scared, nervous, and passive. So you can see how that's a reframe and kind of shifting into a new identity. And finally, connect to event transformation, event promise. So this is incredibly important in the process of becoming a fund manager. If you can't raise capital, you can't run a fund. But don't worry, we're going to be eliminating that problem today. You came to this event to learn how to start, launch, and scale your own investment fund without the help from Wall Street and the Ivies. This is a huge step in that process. So it's important to pay attention and get the most out of the session. So you can see how I tied that into the overall transformation and the overall frame of the event, which is learning how to launch, scale, start, launch, and scale an investment fund without the help of Wall Street and Ivy League. So I just freestyled those in a few minutes, but I hope you're getting the point. If you are, awesome. If not, feel free to drop some comments down below. I'd love to answer them. Now the pitch. So I'm not going to spend too much time here on the pitch because this could be its own, completely different video. But as I'm sure you can tell, framing the pitch at your event is important. And here's just a few tips. Your offer is supposed to offer. That's funny. Your offer is supposed to offer a transformation that expands on the work they've done at your event, and you want to frame it that way. So you don't want your offer to like discredit everything they did at the event. It's like, okay, you just did all this really cool stuff at this event, but it actually doesn't matter at all because my offer is the real thing. You don't want to frame it that way. You want to frame it like it expands on what they've done. It's like, okay, we've solved these problems. We've gotten this far. We've done this. Here's how you can go deeper and like continue the momentum and keep working with what we've already done. You want it to be like an expansion, not like a bait and switch. It's very important framing there. You also want to focus on the transformation or desired outcome that they're going to get from purchasing your offer, not the things they get. This is something that I've really struggled with. It's been hard for me to like wrap my mind around this. And I've even done pitches before for my own products, where I have really focused on like the things they're getting, like, oh, like the checklist and the worksheets and the courses and the resources. But I wasn't focusing on like the transformation and like the desired outcome that they're going to achieve from purchasing the offer. So if you're going to mention a thing for your offer, like maybe you're going to mention a worksheet or a checklist or a course, whatever it is, you want there to be like a so that statement. Like, why is this important? Like, what are they going to get from this? Not like, okay, you're going to get access to my 30-day media buying course that's going to, help you launch a successful media buying campaign. Like that kind of like hints at the so what, but you want it to be very reinforced, like the transformation they're going to experience. Like, if it's talking about like a media buying program, like explain why that media buying program is going to, provide them with a transformation. It's going to like completely change their life. Just really focus on the transformation and desired outcome instead of like the things they get. Now, number 3, paint a clear picture of the gap between their current situation and desired outcome and show how this offer closes that gap. So for us at Fund Launch Live, the current situation of a lot of these people in the room were, most of them were doing syndications, which a syndication is like a one-off deal instead of doing a fund where you raise capital and do a series of deals. So whenever you do a syndication, like you have to raise money every time you do a new one. So if you're buying a piece of real estate, you'd raise money for that. You'd complete the syndication, then you'd raise money again to go acquire another property. While with a fund, you could raise money and you could go do 10 deals or 15 deals or 20 deals or however many deals you want to do. That was like the current situation. Is a lot of people were stuck. We call it like the syndication wheel, the hamster wheel of syndications, where it's like very stressful. It's not scalable, and it takes a lot of time and effort for not very great returns. And the desired outcome was launching a fund where they could, ascend from the hamster wheel syndications into a full-time fund manager where they can just raise capital once and go and deploy into these different deals. It's better financial returns. It's a lot less stressful, a lot less effort. It's just a better situation. So that was the gap. And we framed the offer, like the overall event, and also the offer was framed as like, hey, we're going to take you from the wheel of syndications all the way to the luxury of being a fund manager. And the way that we will do that for you is through our offer. That was the whole framing. And finally, positioned as the logical next step in their journey of transformation. So yeah, this is what I mentioned up here. Like you want to provide a ton of value at your events, but you want your offer to be framed as like the logical next step. So like we've done all this work. Like what happens when you go to work on Monday and something breaks, or you want to do this or you want to do that, you need help. This is what you do. You join our offer and we will help you like get these results, and we'll help you like implement everything you learned from this event, and we'll help you, answer your questions and make sure that you actually achieve your desired end result. Because at the end of the day, this is like a little tangent. you can only do so much for your attendees at their events. You can only solve so many problems. You can only provide so much value. You can only like do so much work on their business. When they go home, they're going to be on their own if they don't buy your offer. And if you want to like guarantee their success, maybe not guarantee, that's a touchy word these days, but if you want to increase their likelihood of success, you want them to join your offer. So just like communicate that, like be honest about it. Like, hey, we are only able to do so much at this event. Like, yes, you will go see results when you go home with the material that you learned and achieved and accomplished at this event. But if you want to actually achieve a desired outcome of X result, you need to join our offer, because that's how we're going to get you there. We can't do that here over 3 days or 1 day or 2 days or however long your event is. So those are just a few tips for your pitching at events. Yes, the pitch is important, but selling the selling of your offer begins at the very moment someone buys a ticket to your event. And when that happens, when someone buys a ticket to your event, that's when the story begins. Like the story you're telling, their own story of transformation. It's like when somebody's experiencing a transformation, like that's a story that you're telling at your event. And throughout the entire process, you should be getting your attendees to commit to this transformation and the beliefs that come along with that, with the transformation. So like these beliefs and these identity shifts that come along with the transformation that you're taking them on, you want them to be committing to that. And that's why framing is so important. You are bringing their attention back to the transformation every single time that you frame something at your event. And if you can do this properly, the pitch is simply just an invitation. It's not a pitch. You're not like convincing someone to buy your offer. You're like inviting them into your offer because they're already pre-sold due to the fact they've already committed to the transformation. So that is during the event. Now after the event. So this is going to be pretty short, but after the event, for the attendees, after the event is one of the most important, if not the most important part of the transformation, because this is where they like lock in their gains from the event, or they forget everything they did and they get no results. You know, there's two types of people when they leave events. They go and they implement things, they lock in their gains, or they forget everything and they wait until their next event to feel like the feel good dopamine hit of going to an event, and they go home and they change nothing. So you don't want your attendees to be the latter. You want them to be the ones that go and they go and they lock in their gains and they get results from your events. And you want to frame it that way. You want to be upfront about that. Like, hey, most people will go and do this. Now that you've undergone this transformation, you're going to go do this because this is your new identity. This is who you are. You're going to be, humans we have a consistency bias to align with who we are. If they've truly undergone a transformation, like you want to frame the consistency bias as like they're going to go do this instead of going and doing what everyone else does. And this could be a huge part of your follow-up process. Your follow-up process could be framed as helping them lock in their gains and to get the most out of their experience. And this will also help you with post-event sales. So if people didn't buy at your event and you have a follow-up process, you could, leverage this whole like locking in their gains and getting the most out of the event as a way to like continue to seed your offer and to plant the seed that like, hey, you should probably join the offer if you want to get these results. And you will definitely be able to pull in some post-event sales that way. And a little bonus here for after the event, frame your offer as the best / easiest way to lock in their gains. So as you're talking about this, you could say something along the lines of like, hey, if you didn't join us in this offer at the event, that's totally fine. But, maybe tomorrow we're having this call and we're going to, everyone that was at the event is going to jump on and like talk about how they are locking in their gains and how they are doing X, Y, and Z to go and get this result. If you're still on the fence, like jump on, let's like, click this link, book a call, let's have a conversation. You could even do like a post-event call. We've done this before. We call them encore events, but people can like attend an event after the event to kind of like reinforce what they learned at the event. And you can also get people on this, usually it's a virtual event. You can get people on this virtual event that didn't attend your in-person event, and you can frame it as like locking in their gains, but just another way for you to invite them into your offer. So there's so many different rabbit holes we can go down. I wanted to keep this video like kind of high level just to show you the power of framing of before, during, and after the event. And hopefully that was relatively straightforward. If there's any questions at all, I know that was kind of a lot. Please drop them down below in the comments, or actually I have a better idea. This leads me to something I wanted to show you. Okay, so this is our free school community called Bullish Events. It's a community on the platform of school, the URL school.com/event. And inside of this community, it's completely free. We don't sell anything except for our done for you services. Like the only way that we make money is through actually like doing events for our clients. Like we don't have any courses to sell. We don't have any like resources or tools to sell. This is simply just a free community for people, for high ticket coaches and consultants that are either currently hosting events or looking to host events. It's a place for them to go to connect with others that are doing the same thing, to share what's working for them in the event space. We're sharing what's working for all of our clients, giving you very up-to-date updates, very, very relevant updates, baby, on the live events industry for coaching and consulting businesses. And it's also a way for you just to ask questions. So if you have any questions about what I just talked about framing for live events, just join this community. It's completely free, and you can ask your question. We'll answer it. Maybe other people from the community will provide their insights. But if you are currently or interested in hosting live events for your coaching or consulting business in any way, this is the place to be. Where we're building this amazing community. There's some very, very talented and very impressive people in here that are, absolutely killing it with live events. And we do, at this point, we're doing around like 1 or 2 events. And on our busy months, back in September, we did like 5 events in 6 weeks, which was crazy, or 5 events in 4 weeks. I think it was 5 events in 4 weeks. But we're doing a lot of events, and we're always sharing like what's working for us and like what's not working, and just giving updates there. And there's also other people that are sharing their wins and their updates from their events. So if you are interested in hosting live events for your coaching or consulting business, this is the place to be. Also, if you have any questions about the video that you just watched, feel free to drop them inside this community, or if you want, you can drop them down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.